And today what I am going to talk about is about Brownian motion. You can relax, it's not going to be technical. It's a historical introduction to Brownian motion. So we start with Robert Brown. Many of us know Brownian motion, therefore Brown must have something to do with it. So in 1827, he was a very respected man, Scottish botanist, famous for classification of plants. He noticed pollen in water suspension displayed very rapid, highly irregular zigzag motion. What caused this motion? Of course, he was very patient, conducted lots of experiments. Is it due to currents? Is it due to evaporation? Is there any attraction or repulsion between particles? Is there any unstable equilibrium? Is there any capillary action in the water? Are air bubbles causing this? And finally, you will be surprised, he was also wondering, is there life in the pollen particles? So, he persisted for explanation. And that is what all the youngsters should do. If you observe something, don't ignore it. Ask for an explanation why that is happening. Many times we give up. So that was in 1820s. And then, nearly 70 years later, Louis Bacallier, a French mathematician, his thesis was on theory de la speculation. We have BTech math finance courses here. That is where it started, speculation. He was a student of Henri Poincaré, very well-known figure in mathematics. By 1850, Paris Stock Exchange was already very famous. So he was trying to model fluctuation in the stock price at time t. I will only say stock price, but with the fluctuation, okay? Assume that the initial price is 0, no problem. PTX is the probability that the price at time t is between x and x plus dx. Of course, dx doesn't mean anything, but in a small interval around x. So he derived this equation, T1 plus T2z is integral Pt1x, Pt2z minus x dx. For those who work in Markov processes, this is a very familiar equation, so-called Kolmogorov-Chapman equation, but that doesn't matter. Now, people were very thorough with heat equation and the solution, fundamental solution of the heat equation. So quickly he recognized that Ptx is 1 by 2 pi k square root of t, e to the power of minus x square by 4 pi k square t, whatever it is, doesn't matter. That doesn't concern us here. It's an exponential function. It looks like normal density. That is the solution for Px. That is how we arrived at Brownian motion. And his thesis was unique for several reasons. First of all, in those days, the fashion was mathematical physics and geometry. Probability was not at all fashionable. And probability was not even well recognized. His own supervisor, Henri Poincaré, did not think anything great about probability. Okay? Until Borel proved the normal number theorem. Okay? For those of you who do not know what is that normal number theorem, it essentially says if you take a typical number in the interval 0 to 1, if you look at the decimal expansion of that number, each digit occurs with frequency 1 by 10, okay, for any typical number. So that is when Poincaré sort of found probability interesting. And continuous time processes were not considered till then. Probability was being worked upon and so on. But essentially discrete processes and so on were considered. That was the first time a continuous time process was considered. And paths of processes were considered again for the first time. So a typical trajectory of the fluctuation as a function of time was considered. And the fundamental concept of arbitrage was introduced in that thesis. Okay? a good model for stock prices should not allow people to make money. If that happens, everybody will try to do that, the price changes. Okay? So that is the arbitrage, and that was Louis Bacallier who did that. But again, of course, he did know Brownian motion, therefore he did not use the word Brownian motion, but PTX we will see how it is related to Brownian motion sharply. And then a few years later, in 1905, Einstein, he was working in statistical mechanics and molecular kinetic theory. What was he trying to do? In his own words, he was trying to find facts which would guarantee as much as possible the existence of atoms of definite size. By then, it was not yet clear that there were atoms at all. In the midst of these, I discovered that according to atomistic theory, there would be movement of suspended microscopic particles open to observation. If motion is taking place and you can't see, there is no point. So the great discovery is there is motion and the motion is observable. And he says it is possible that the movements discussed here are identical with the so-called Brownian motion. However, the information available to me about the latter, namely Brownian motion, is lacking in precision. I can form no judgment in the matter. But it is Brownian motion. He had a two-part argument. So, you have a liquid, you have certain suspended particles. If you assume that this liquid is made of atoms, these atoms keep on bombarding the suspended particles. Okay? The displacement of a particle, okay, is x at time t with this probability. He got this differential equation, del p by del t is d del square p by del x square. Okay? For those who are familiar with heat equation, this is another manifestation of the heat equation. Okay? And of course, I already used the word probability. If you ask, was Einstein, did he say probability? No, he did not. Okay? The proportion of particles that will be displaced, okay, by an amount x. That satisfies, okay? PTX satisfies this equation. One has to be careful. Okay. Now, the second part of the argument is to relate D, the coefficient of diffusion, to Avogadro number and viscosity of the liquid. That is a two-part argument. And it is precisely this argument that later on, okay, completely showed that things are made of atoms and so on and so forth. And Avogadro number was also discovered in this process. I think it was Jean Perry who got Nobel Prize, but not Einstein yet. Okay? All right. He assumed, this is very crucial for us. So, if you take the particle, it is being displaced. If you take two disjoint time intervals, the displacement, okay, between executed by the particle in two consecutive intervals of time are to be considered as mutually independent phenomena. Okay? Because if during this time interval, several of the atoms are bombarding these particles, next time interval, disjoint from that, atoms are bombarding. Okay? This is sort of independent. There is no relation at all. If 10 bombardments are there, it is not necessary that there should be exactly 10 here. Okay? Alright. So that was the thing. And important conclusion is not only that you can observe the motion, but the squared displacement is proportional to duration of displacement. Okay? So during time interval 25, okay, the amount of displacement is proportional to phi. Of course, displacement is a random quantity, but I am just telling loosely. We will see precisely in a minute. So, in a time interval 36, this displacement is approximately of the order of 6. That is conclusion, not assumption. And of course, the Polish physicist Smoluchowski also arrived at the same thing before Einstein, but he did not publish. He was waiting are the results, okay, to be confirmed by experiments. But after seeing Einstein, we published, that is Einstein and Minkowski. Then, the math started in 1923. So 1905, 1906, that was the time Einstein happened. Norbert Wiener, he was a postdoc with Bertrand Russell, and he attended lectures by Hardy, Hilbert, Edmund Landau, and naturally he acquired a wide-ranging interest: physics, mathematics, philosophy, and so on. Okay. So right now, Norbert Wiener, everybody in mathematics, or in electrical engineering, or in signal processing, everybody would know the name. No. So on Russell's suggestion, he established the existence of such a motion mathematically. So the question arises, what do you mean mathematically? Okay. I will describe that. But as far as Wiener was concerned, what he did was the following. He showed that the trajectories are continuous. He showed how to calculate average values of quantities depending on the trajectory. Okay? After all, if you want to describe a measure, if you describe integrals of various functions, that will more or less describe the measure. That is what he did. He described how to calculate expected values or averages of several functions depending on the trajectory. Of course, it was a very difficult paper to read, and the reason was measure theory was not developed, okay, for probability at that time. Of course, Lebesgue started measure theory in 1901, but to bring it in contact with probability was done later, as we will see. So, he found enough about integrals or expected values to get a measure by using Daniel's theory of integration. You can get measure. Now, famous probabilist Daniel too, this is what he says. His work remained unknown to, or at least ignored by other probabilists for about 50 years. And Irving Siegel, another noted mathematician, he says, the novelty of his Brownian motion theory, the mathematical theory, was such that it was not at all widely appreciated at the time, and the few who appreciated, such as Harald Kramer in Sweden, Paul Levy in France, were outside the United States. So it was not very much noticed. Of course, you can't keep it away for long, right? So, now, this is Kolmogorov in 1933 laid the rigorous foundations of probability theory, mathematical foundations. You see? So, for example, what is a random variable? It was quite so. It is something that depends on chance. That's all, okay? So, what he did was the following. The precise mathematical foundation for probability consists of three things: set of outcomes of an experiment, and events, and probability for events. For example, if you are tossing a coin 2 times, then set of outcomes is HH, HT, TH, TT. If you are rolling a die, set of outcomes is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the faces that may come. Okay? And if you are observing trajectory of a particle that does not jump, then possible outcomes are continuous functions. Okay? Any continuous function can be a possible part of the particle. So, and probability is a countable additive measure. Probability of whole space is 1. So, this is the precise mathematical foundation. Therefore, you can talk about integral. By then, already Lebesgue's theory of integration was there. So, random variable x is a measurable function. Okay. So, random variable is not something that is hanging in the air. Okay. Actually, random variable is neither random nor variable. It is a function defined on the sample space. Okay. So, expectation of a random variable is the integral, and of course, I shall not get into what made him define so. I can only say the following. Some of the mathematicians might simply say, oh, what is great about it? After all, probability just measure where measure of whole space is. But that's not their reach. The whole point is that is enough to do whatever probability has been done so far at that time and what can be done in the future. So this is what Precious says. It is not enough to have all the ideas in mind to recall them now, but then one must make sure that their totality is sufficient, bring them together explicitly, and take responsibility for saying no further axiom is needed to construct the theory of knowledge. That's what Kolmogorov did. Okay. So he laid the mathematical foundations. But having laid the mathematical foundations, now let us come to think precisely what should be Brownian motion. So discuss motion in one dimension. Okay? You can discuss motion in any number of dimensions, but let us discuss in one dimension. So the particle starts from 0 and it performs motion on the real line. Let us consider entire time axis 0 to infinity. So what can be a possible outcome? If you do keep observing the particle, then the motion or the outcome that you observe is a continuous function omega t. Omega 0 is 0. Is a continuous function. Omega t takes real values, that is performing motion on the real line. Of course, if you are considering motion in this room, then omega t will be a continuous function. For every t, omega t takes values in this room, and so on. But let us look at motion on the real line. Therefore, omega t is a real number for every t. Alright. And I define xt omega as omega t. So what does that signify? Everything has a meaning. Okay? If omega is the trajectory taken by the particle, then xt omega is the position of the particle at time t according to the trajectory omega. Okay. If there is some other trajectory, then position will be different. So these are all functions. And what are events? Events is the smallest sigma field, but we don't have to worry about sigma field because we are not going to do any serious mathematics. It is a bag of sets satisfying certain conditions, good enough to do probability. Okay, that's it. For every t and for every interval AB in the real life, look at all trajectories whose value at that time t belongs to this interval AB. Okay. Given a point t in 0 to infinity and given an interval AB, I am describing a set of trajectories. That set is all trajectories whose value at t is in the interval AB. Okay. So by taking various choices of t and AB, you will get several sets. The sigma field, which includes all these sets, the smallest sigma field. Okay, a bag of sets. Now, we have described what are outcomes. We have described what should be events. Okay, and these are taken as events because these are what we will be interested in. Okay, we will be interested in asking what are the chances at time t the particle is between 4 and 5. Okay, what are the chances at time 39 the particle is between, let us say, 18 and 19. These are the questions we will be interested in. Therefore, we should be able to answer the question. If you want to answer the question, you should know its probability. Okay? We are going to define probability for events. All. So that is why we have put all those sets of interest in the bag F. Okay. Then, what is the requirements for the probability P? We need a probability, right? There is no force acting on the particle. Therefore, the average displacement should be 0. So here is the particle, and this is being bombarded by both sides. Okay? And there is no force acting. These bombardments are all random bombardments. Therefore, the chances that something hits from this side should be the same as the chances something hits from that side. Therefore, we expect on the average there will be no displacement at all. Expected value of xt is 0. Okay? Those of you who are not very familiar with probability should keep in mind that expected value is 0 does not mean the particle stays at 0. Okay? It might go to +1 with probability half, -1 with probability half. So on the average it is 0. Okay? So it is the expected value or the integral that is 0. And displacement during an interval depends only on the duration of that interval. So for example, displacement in the interval 1 to 2 displacement in the interval 4 to 5. In 1 unit of time, this particle experiences certain bombardments by the molecules around or atoms around. There, during 4 to 5 also, the particle experiences in 1 unit of time certain bombardments. So the number of bombardments roughly depends on the time. The more time there will be more, the less time there will be less, that's all, okay. So the second condition is if s is less than t and u is less than v time points, with t minus s is same as v minus u, then xt minus xs and xu minus xu have the same distribution. Okay. What is the xt minus xs? Xs is the displacement up to time s, the position at time s. Xt is the position at time t. What is the difference? It is the displacement during this time interval. Okay. If you are at this position time s, at this position time t, then this difference is the displacement, right, during this interval. Similarly, xu minus xu is the displacement during the time u2. So, that says xt minus xs, xu minus xu must have the same distribution if the lengths of the intervals are same. In particular, if you take any xt and xt plus s minus xs that have the same variance, what is xt plus s minus xs? Xs is position at time s. Xt plus s is position at time t plus s. The difference is the fluctuation or the change or the displacement during this time interval of length t, s to t plus s. And what is xt? It is the displacement during the interval 0 to t. Therefore, both are displacement during interval of the same length. Therefore, they should have the same variance because they have the same distribution. And here comes Einstein's suggestion. If you take displacement during disjoint intervals, they should be independent. Okay? That is, if you take time points t1, t2, tn, xt1, xt2 minus xt1, and x, etc., so on, they should be independent random variables. That is what Einstein was mentioned. During disjoint time intervals, the displacements are independent. Okay. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the definition of independence, here is a quick recall. If we have such a random variable, they are said to be independent. Whenever you take intervals and ask the question, what is the probability? First random variable is in the first interval, second random variable is in the second interval, and the 100th random variable is in the 100th interval. That probability is same as product of individual probabilities. Okay? So, product that the ith random variable is mixed. Okay? So, during disjoint intervals, the displacements are independent. Okay. So, again, let me recall. Okay? There are too many things that we have done now. 3 conditions we have imposed. Okay? We don't know what is the probability. We made the space of outcomes clear to us. They are all continuous functions on the interval 0 to infinity, whose value at 0 is 0. That is a possible outcome if you observe the particle clearly. And we made somewhat clear to ourselves what should be events, but don't bother about that. And what probability would model the motion we are thinking. Okay? We came up with 3 conditions. Okay? The probability P should be such that average value of each xt should be 0, and xt plus s minus xs and xt, they should have the same variance, in fact distribution wise and so on. And disjoint intervals, the increments are independent. Okay. These are the things. And is there any probability on the collection of events that you have described satisfying these conditions? Okay? And if so, how many? The answer is yes, there is. There is exactly one. Okay? For s less than t, xt minus xs must have normal distribution. Okay? So far I didn't say about normal distribution. Okay? And for those of you who are not familiar, probability once again, what is normal distribution? a random variable z is normal if either it is a constant. Random variable identical equal to 59 is a normal random variable, don't worry. Okay? Or there is a number mu and a sigma. So the probability that belongs to the interval AB is the integral of the complicated function over AB. Okay? If you are wondering whether the complicated function is discovered to make our life difficult, okay? It is not. It is something that enters our life on its own, okay? Uninvited. Alright? So, we will come to that in a minute. It is not necessary. Pay attention. It is exponential. Comes to a root of 2 pi. Looks like the most useless thing of all. Pi comes into picture, exponential comes into picture, square root comes into picture. Who cares about all that? But that arises. And the reason that arises is because of the so-called set limit theorem. Okay? If you take any random variable xt, for example, xt is the sum of two independent random variables. What are they? X at t by 2 and xt minus xt by 2. Okay? This increment up to t by 2 and the increment between t to t by 2. These two will make up x. Xt is also sum of four independent random variables. What are they? X at t by 4, x at t by 2 minus x at t by 4, telescopic sum. X at thrice t by 4 minus x at t by 2, xt minus xt. So, you can express xt as the sum of 100 independent random variables. You have only to divide the interval 0 to t into 100 pieces, 0, 1 by 100, 2 by 100, and look at the successive increments in each. They are summed in the grants. Therefore, this random variable xt is the sum of any number of random variables you want independently, each very small. Okay? And one of the fundamental theorems of probability says, if you have a quantity which is a large number of small things, it's large and small, what it does mean, we have to be precise. Anyway, then such a random variable obeys this rule. Okay? So that is why you can show here, it is not an assumption, that this is random variable that satisfies this condition. Xt minus xs for every s less than t, that is not. Okay. And what are those numbers mu and sigma square? They have an interpretation. Mu is the mean value and sigma square is the variance. Okay? It is not necessary for us to know what it has those things mean at this moment. Okay. Now, thus for our process, expected value of xt would be 0 and variance of xt, if I say it is ft, then ft has an interesting property. F at t plus s, what is f at t plus s? It is variance of xt plus s. I can write xt plus s as the sum of two things, xs and xt plus s minus x. That is xt. Why did I write it that way? Because those two things are independent. Okay? This is the increment from 0 to s, the first quantity, and the next quantity is the increment from s to t plus s. They are independent. And there is a nice simple theorem which says variance of independent random variables is sum of variances. Okay? Therefore, it is variance of xt plus variance of. But what is the variance of this? This is the same distribution as. Okay? This is the same distribution as. Right? Okay, I am going in the wrong direction. Very good, very good. All right. Yeah. This is the same distribution, xt plus s minus xt. Xt plus s minus xs has the same distribution as xt because the length of the interval s to t plus s is t. Therefore, its variance is same as variance of xt, therefore fs plus s. And of course, we can argue that f is a continuous function, and there is a beautiful theorem in mathematics which says if you have a non-negative function on 0 to infinity, it satisfies that equation which is continuous, then such a function is c times. If c equal to 0, then variance is 0, that's an uninteresting case. Okay? Variance 0 means there is no motion at all. Therefore, we assume variance is positive, the c is positive. And if c is positive, then I can normalize my units in such a fashion that I take c equal to 1. Okay? So, variance of xt minus x is t minus x. Okay? Variance of xt is t itself. Therefore, now we come to the precise mathematical definition of probability, which was Brownian motion, which was made possible by Kolmogorov's axiomatization of probability. So, a probability on space C00, that means all continuous functions on the interval 0 to infinity which start from 0. Okay? The best way to remember is all possible trajectories, that's all. Okay? That is a standard Wiener process. I am now using the word Wiener process, okay? Mathematical description. But this is same as Brownian motion. If xt minus xs is normal with mean 0, variance t minus x, and for disjoint things, okay, xt1, xt2 minus xt1, etc. What is the difference between this and the earlier thing? Earlier I never talked about normal distribution. Okay? I only made up my mind following the molecular bombardments. What are the reasonable conditions for xt? That's all. Okay? But those reasonable conditions, of course, normal distribution are. So this is a probability on this space. It's called standard Wiener process or standard Wiener probability. You could satisfy those conditions. Sometimes you refer to the random variables itself as a process. Okay? So the question arises, is the probability Wiener process or are the random variables Wiener process? Doesn't matter. Okay? They are one and the same. And sometimes you may not want to talk about path space. Okay? You may want to talk about random variables defined on some probability space. Okay? A set omega and a bag of subsets of omega and a probability is there and some random variables Bt are defined as that. That is called Brownian motion if it satisfies those two conditions above, namely Bt minus ds is normal, blah blah, and if you take time points, the increments are independent. But two more conditions which were implicit above. Okay? What are the conditions? B0 is identically equal to 0. And Bt is a continuous function. So such a thing is called Brownian motion. So a collection of random variables in Brownian motion if it satisfies those conditions. There is such a thing and so on. But then the question arises, what happened? You said that you are going to say this molecular bombardment is causing motion of the particle. Where did the molecular bombardment disappear? Okay? You kept on saying some reasonable conditions for our probability and then arrived at this definition. Well, this is the thing. Gorska in 1951. You start at 0 at time 0. I am now going to describe a process, okay? For a while, keep the Brownian motion in abeyance. Let us think of a discrete observation, okay, of our pure suspended particle, which is subject to bombardment, okay? So, start at 0 at time 0. At every time, 1, 2, etc., toss a coin. Move 1 unit forward or 1 unit backward, okay? So, I toss a coin. Heads up, I go forward, tails up, I go backward. Okay, suppose I have got to 1. Then I toss my coin. Heads up, I go to 2, tails up, I go back to 2. Okay. This is called simple symmetric random walk. Okay. Simple because only 1 unit. Symmetric, each has equal probability. Random walk. Okay. Plus going forward or backward, they have equal probability. Simple symmetric random walk. Okay. First then, what if I move more frequently but in smaller time units? Okay. You see, this is always the problem. Whenever you want to describe a continuous motion, okay, how do you make it form? So, for instance, if you look at your particles, you can think of this particle being bombarded every minute. Then what happens? Being bombarded every half minute. Then what happens? Being bombarded by the surrounding atom every 1/4 minute. What happens? In the limit, what happens? Okay. That is how we think of continuous motion. Okay. Therefore, I am now thinking of discrete motions. Every time unit, there is a bombardment. It causes a displacement. The displacement is either to the right or to the left. Now, if I observe at frequent intervals, and if I somehow formalize it and take the limit, that will give me a model of continuous motion. Now, for example, move at times 1 by n, 2 by n, 3 by n, 4 by n, etc. Okay? In terms of hours or seconds, doesn't matter. Unit doesn't matter. Okay? Each time, but if you move too much in each small interval, then there is going to be a big problem. There will be high fluctuations. I will make it precise with it. So each time an amount plus or minus 1 by root n units. So for example, every half a minute, I will do the same thing. Okay? Imagine that what I said earlier, okay? Move plus 1 minus 1. Every half minute, move plus 1 by root or minus 1 by root. Every 1/4 minute, task over 5. Move plus 1 by square root 4 minus 1 by square root 4. So those of you who are not familiar with probability, once again, would wonder, oh, by the way, before I go to the next thing, this is what makes molecular number as infinitesimal displays every millisecond. Okay? By taking and going to infinity, what you are trying to do is formalize continuous bombardment. Now, let me, this 1 by n, 1 by root n business, for some of you who are not familiar with method thinking or with probability, either you can look at Einstein's conclusion. Okay? During a time interval, the displacement is of the order of square root of the time interval. That is what I mean. Okay? But you can also look at it. I will give you a simple caricature. Suppose you invest 1 rupee in a bank. Bank says interest rate is R. Okay? At the year end, you will get 1 plus R. But suppose the bank says every 1 by n unit of time we update with interest R by n. Okay? Every quarter, R by 4, pro rata, R by 4. Okay? End of first quarter, 1 plus R by 4. End of second quarter, it will be 1 plus R by 4 whole square, etc. Suppose the bank says we will continuously, interest is accrues continuously, okay? Continuously. There is no such thing as continuous update. By the time you update, the time unit is gone. We have to make it precise. So, what is meant by saying that? Okay, interest is calculated continuously. That means we take the limit of this and give you what it is. Okay? And that, of course, you know what it is. Instead, consider a scenario. Bank says every 1 by n unit of time we update with interest. It appears much more. The denominator is n to the power of something larger than 1. Because the denominator is large, I am giving you more interest. Okay? So, every 1 by n unit of time, we will do that much. Then at the end of the year, 1 plus that whole power n. Interest accrues continuously, suppose the bank says that. What will you get? You will get the limit of that as 1 plus R by that whole power. Exactly like earlier one. Okay, there is no difference. This is what happened earlier, right? I am doing exactly the same thing. Interest accrues continuously. So you have to make precise a word that has no meaning. Continuous calculation of interest has no meaning. Okay? It is the limit over here. First, then will you accept it? And of course, a little bit of mathematics. We have theorems and analysis and so on and so forth. Okay? We will say that no, you can't accept it. Why? Because the limit of that is 1. You don't get anything at all. Okay? You don't get anything. The limit of that is 1. Suppose the bank says, all right, because you are not accepting that, bank says every 1 by n unit of time we update with interest a little more. Okay? Denominator is now smaller than n. Okay? Therefore, this is a little more than R by n. Okay? At the year end, you will get this much. Suppose the bank says interest, it puts continuously. Then at the year end, you will get this. Can the bank afford to do that? No. Because the limit of this will be infinity. Okay? So beautiful mathematics. So you can't do anything other than n in the denominator. N power anything. More than 1, less than 1 is no. Of course you can say 2 times r by n, 3 times r by n, that you can say. But the power you can't take. So this 1 by n is the right normalization for the limit to exist. So this 1 by root n is the right normalization. You can prove a precise theorem if you take any other thing. Instead of n power half, a little bigger than half or a little smaller than half, you have no problem. Okay, so now let us get back to our thing. Okay, I only illustrated this to tell you. So formulate convergence of discrete motions to continuous motion. Okay. Take the time interval 0 to 1. Consider plus 1 minus 1. For epsilon here, consider the function polygonal like joining these things. Okay. Now, what is all this nonsense? I am now making precise. Okay. If you look at the time interval 0 to 1, every 1 by n unit of time I am performing motion. I toss my coin, heads up, move forward, plus 1 by root n, tails up, move backward, minus 1 by root. Okay? If you have tossed a coin n times to perform the motion, okay? At 1 by n, 2 by n. Now, if plus 1 minus 1 will tell you power n. That means all sequences of length n consisting of plus 1 and minus 1. That means all possible outcomes of this experiment. Okay? All possible outcomes of this experiment. What is the experiment? Every 1 by n unit of time, you move. Okay. So, this epsilon 1, epsilon 2, etc., epsilon n, okay, are roughly random variables taking plus 1, minus 1 values with probability half and half. When you toss the coin n times, there are 2 to the power of n such things. Okay. So, if you make one such toss, what happens? You will get a sequence of plus 1 and minus 1. Epsilon 1 is the first thing you got. You don't know plus 1 or minus 1. Then where will you go? Epsilon 1 by root. Then next time you get epsilon 2. I don't know it may be plus 1 or minus 1, doesn't matter. Where are you now? Epsilon 1 by root. Where will you go? Epsilon 1 by root plus epsilon 2 by root. Okay? That is where you are. Third time you toss, you will get epsilon 3. I don't know plus 1 or minus 1. Where will you go now? You are at epsilon 1 by root n plus epsilon 2 by root n. Next time you will go to epsilon 1 by root n plus epsilon 2 by root n plus epsilon 3 by root n. That's what that comes. Okay? And finally, by time 1, you are at summation epsilon by. There are 2 to the power of n sample points. They are all continuous functions. Okay? I did not leave them as discrete points hanging in the air. Okay? At time 1 by n, I am somewhere. At time 2 by n, I am somewhere. At time 3 by n, I am somewhere. I join them by polygon. Polygon line is straight line. Okay? Join successive point by straight line. Then you get a continuous function. Okay? Therefore, you got a continuous function that is an element of C. And this sequence, so this is a sequence. There is a probability on this space. This probability is concentrated on 2 to the power of n points. Each point gets probability 1 by 2 to the power of n. This is a discrete probability. This is a probability on finitely many points, very elementary. Okay? One can show that this sequence of probabilities converges to a probability. Okay? And that limit satisfies all the conditions needed for Brownian motion. At this moment, I am not talking about Brownian motion on 0 to infinity. Let us talk about only 0 to 1 for simplicity. But whatever I said, you can do on 0 to infinity. Okay? Nothing special. You can do on 0 to infinity. Okay? So this converges. So this makes precise the idea of continuous molecular bombardment. Okay. So this gives the meaning, and displacement due to bombardment can be general. I have taken 1 by root n minus 1 by root n, all those things. You will be wondering why did you do that. You don't have to do any such thing. Okay? You can take any random variable with mean 0 and unit variance. Okay? First time, you don't have to go to 1 by root n minus 1 by root n. Go to epsilon 1, any random variable. Next time, you are at epsilon 1 now. Next time, go to epsilon 1 plus epsilon. Call them eta 1, if there is any confusion. First time you go to eta 1, second time you go to eta 1 plus eta 1. What I want is these things should have mean 0 and variance 1, and of course you have to divide by root n and so on. Okay. So this makes precise the concept of every millisecond the atoms around the suspended particle bombard and cause a motion which manifests in a continuous motion. That is what it is. Okay? All right. So this is Munro-Dorska, and there is another view of Brownian motion, okay, which is due to Feynman. As I said earlier about heat equation twice. Okay? You can talk about heat equation with the potential. Then, in solving that equation, you arrive at Brownian motion automatically. And I would skip this one for lack of time. So that is a very beautiful thing. Okay. What I do now is the following. I will try to get back to Brownian motion. So, Brownian motion is a process satisfying certain conditions as described earlier. It is a Gaussian process. What is a Gaussian process? If you take any finite many object, they are points in orbit. Okay? And it is a martingale. What is a martingale? Expected value of B39, for example, your position at time 39, given all the information up to time 12, is simply the position at time 12. The conditional expectation. That stands to reason, because on the average, okay, between 12 and 39, okay, on the average, how much will you move? 0. On the average, therefore, the conditional average of a feature given the past up to this is 12. And this, for the first time, brings in the concept of conditional expectation given information up to a certain time. Okay? That has two interesting things. Number one, I talked about Brownian motion starting from zero. Remember C0. All our trajectories are starting from 0. But you can start about Brownian motion starting from any point x. Okay. So, what is that? It is Brownian motion starting at 0 at x to that. No, nothing else. Okay. Only initially instead of 0 it is at x. The displacement is same as earlier. Now, there is a huge collection of processes now. One process for each real number. Okay? This is the real life. You have a process starting at this point. You have a process starting at this point. Okay? These processes, it may appear confusing, too many processes starting at every point, but however, they are linked together in a beautiful fashion, like trajectory of a particle in physics, dynamics. Okay? So these Brownian motions form what is called Markov process. You started at 5, you perform Brownian motion. Okay? Imagine a particle which is starting at the point 5 and is performing Brownian motion. I go to sleep. Okay? And at time 29, I wake up and suddenly see that my particle is at the point 33. Okay? Particle started at 5. I went to sleep and got up at time 29. And then I see my particle at time 29 is at 33. Then I will ask, how does it go from now on? Okay, that's a meaningful question. The answer is simple. How does the future motion proceed? Answer. Like BT30, as if it has started from 30. Don't worry that you have been sleeping all this time. You found the particle now at position 33. In future, it will go as if it has started from 33. The past, how did it come to this point 33 is irrelevant. Those of you who do dynamics and physics of the particle are familiar with this. The future motion depends on the present velocity and so on and so forth. Present position and velocity. Okay. As it started, past does not matter. And this is the speed of Markov process. Markov process are formalizations. So this is what in 1906-07, Markov discovered that limit theorems for independent random variables can be extended to random variables connected by a chain. You see, in probability for quite some time, independent random variables were the stable food because you can discuss many things about that, you can prove many theorems, you can understand them thoroughly. But however, many things that appear in practice are not independent. Markov, for the first time, developed the theory of Markov chains, that is what we call chains. About the same time, Einstein started to study mathematically a physical phenomenon, Brownian motion. The synthesis of both directions in Kolmogorov's celebrated 1931 paper was the beginning of Markov process. So this is you do. And now, what can you do with Brownian motion? And since we have to stop in 5 minutes, I will quickly describe what you can do in Brownian motion. Now, if you have real life, okay, now I will be a little technical, but don't worry. Real life and Borel bag of sets and a measure mu. Look at the distribution function, mu of minus infinity. Okay. Now, you can talk about integral. Xt is the cumulative displacement up to time t in our probabilistic setup. Okay? Therefore, you can think of xt is something like ft. Those of you familiar with probability, ft is the cumulative distribution function. It is the probability of the interval minus infinity to t. As you keep on increasing to the probability accumulates. You can think of x. So, instead of the real line, you have the path space, and instead of sigma fluid, you have some other thing. And instead of f, you have the Wiener process. Instead of the function f, you have this process f. Therefore, can you repeat this thing? Integrate with respect to the process. Now, why does one want to do this? Only to imitate? No, it is not just to imitate. You can define integral. Now, this developing the integral leads to differential equations. I will explain in the next slide. And the differential equations lead to construction of Markov processes. And the construction of Markov processes leads to connection with physics and so on. Okay. Now this slide simply tells you, instead of, I skipped one slide, I don't want to define general integral. For those of you who are familiar with Hilbert spaces, if you look at the L2 of 0 infinity, L2 of the Wiener space, with any interval AB, associate xb minus xa. That is indicator function of the interval AB, which is in L2 of the interval, here Lebesgue measure, the displacement during that. This becomes an isometry which you can extend. And this extension is called Wiener integral. And what Ito did was integrate any process. Alright. Now, I will quickly describe what is this integral leading to. I said integral leads to differential equation. So don't pay attention to the first line, pay attention to the second line. Usual integration leads to differentiation, differential equations. Okay. For example, dzt equal to zt dt, z0 equal to 1. What does that mean? That means zt is nothing but 1 plus 0 to t ds. Similarly, dzt equal to sigma zt, sigma is a function, z0 equal. What does that mean? That means zt is equal. In other words, meaning of a differential equation is this integral equation. Okay? Therefore, if you define stochastic integral, this differential equation makes sense. Okay? And for example, dzt equal to sigma zt dxt, z0 equal to psi. I am repeating exactly the same thing that I did earlier for the deterministic setup calculus. Zt equals psi plus that. Okay. This leads to powerful stochastic calculus in general paper and leads to useful informative formula, formula, which is used quite often in mathematical finance, leads to several applications and so on. And Ito developed this. There is another picture you see, Doblin, which also appears, a name I have not mentioned so far. Actually, apparently Doblin also discovered this calculus and Ito formula, and I don't know too much about it to explain to you. So, Doblin was a young man caught in this war. He was a German Jew. He became a French citizen. He fought against Germans. And when he was surrounded, he burned all his mathematical papers and then shot himself. However, before this happened, a few months before, all the mathematics he did, he sent it to the French Academy. That was the custom in those days, okay? You send it to the French Academy, they will lock it and keep. If you go back, you can collect it, cut it. Unfortunately, he died. And recently, a few years ago, that box was opened, they found out those formula and so on. That is in there. And there are beautiful things by books by Paul Levy and Mark Lohr. And I will stop here. The stochastic calculus is the culmination of all those things which started in biology and went to physics. It still has connections with the physics, by the way. Has connections with the differential equations. And thank you all for your patience. If you have any questions, you can ask me.